Everybody, this is Dream. We got a nice little 3-game slate on here. First game starts at 7 p.m. The last game starts at 10 p.m. So that's going to be a little bit irritating. But overall, we got some injury reports, so let's get into that. For the Knicks, quickly is questionable. For the Pistons, Ivy, Bogdanovich, Bagley, and Stewart are all questionable. Cunningham is out. For the Clippers, Paul George, Wall, Kawhi Leonard, and Kennard are out. And then for the Blazers, Lillard and Keon Johnson are out. So we got a lot of injuries to consider. And we actually, with the Pistons having 4 guys questionable, that's really going to make or break the slate when it comes to making decisions on that kind of stuff. So we're going to have to wait and see who we think are going to play here. But I'm just basing this off as the assumption that all those guys are going to play. And so we'll see how that ends up playing out, though. But anyway, let's get into the players I like on DraftKings first. Then I'll get to FanDuel after the fact. So I have 3 players in my lineup here already who I think are core plays today, at least at this point. Now, these could subject to change if injury situations change, but overall, I think these are probably the most likely quality guys. First of all, we're going to look at Jalen Brunson. For the Knicks, he's just been playing extremely well lately. His price has come up some, but he's still a little bit too cheap for his potential. He's really close to 40 fantasy point per game kind of guy. And even though his minutes do fluctuate a little bit, typically he's one of the few guys on the Knicks that's pretty consistent. Assuming that he is in a good, remains healthy, he's a good play on the slate. Then we'll look at Terrence Mann for the Clippers. His minutes have skyrocketed with injuries to the Clippers, especially with Paul George and Kawhi Leonard both being out. And he should even get more run now with John Wall out. So his upside is definitely in the mid-30s on a slate like this. So we'll have to see because he'll get plenty of minutes to get there. Then we're going to look at Mitchell Robinson, Now he's finally come back from injury, and his price has actually come down a little bit, so that gives him some upside. He is streaky when it comes to minutes, as you can see throughout the season, but he does have double-double potential and upside in this matchup, and especially if Detroit has a lot of guys out, he's going to be an interesting play. Honestly, there's quite a few guys on the Knicks that are decent plays, but a lot of them are very streaky. So let's go and get at other players I like here. So we're going to look at Norman Powell for the Clippers. Obviously, with Kawhi and Paul George out, he's going to get more minutes. And he's played pretty solid for this most of the season, but he's been kind of inconsistent. He'll have bad games here and there. And even the last against Denver, when both Kawhi and Paul George were out, he played pretty rough. But again, he gets minutes and he does get shot attempts. And it's just a matter of hitting a decent amount of them to pay off. His price has come up quite a bit, though, which if it was sub 4,000 or if it was under 5,000, I would actually have had him as a core play. But with his price being above that, it's not as ideal. And then we're going to look at Justice Winslow. He was really close to me to being a core play as well. But just the way he's played the last few games, especially with Lillard out, his minutes have skyrocketed. But he's still pretty streaky, and he's a little bit inconsistent minute-wise as well. So, we do have to take that into consideration, especially with it seems like most of the guys are going to be back for them. As long as he starts, though, he's going to be an interesting play. Then we'll look at Jeremy Grant for Portland. He should get more run with Lillard out, and he's been playing really well in those games. And I expect that to continue. His price has come up ever so slightly from the last couple games, but his minutes are there, and he should be a focal point of the offense. Same goes for Joseph Nurkic. He's been playing really well with Lillard out as well, and his price has come up some also, but he has nice upside in this matchup. Both those guys are borderline, guys that I could say that you could must use. So overall on DraftKings, we have some pretty decent plays. Obviously, we're still got to wait on some news when it comes to the Pistons and even for some other guys. So overall, though, I do like the Knicks-Detroit game and also the Warriors-Dallas game quite a bit. And then a couple guys for the Clippers and Portland. So, I think you're going to probably make a pretty balanced lineup when it comes across the different teams on this particular slate. As for FanDuel, pricing is a lot more irritating over here. And unfortunately, that makes it hard to run a roster anybody because the pricing is much higher comparatively to DraftKings, except for certain players like Luka, who are in a weird situation where his price is actually quite a bit cheaper, which is wild considering he's $12,000 on on FanDuel. I think he's almost 12,600, yeah, on DraftKings. So he actually does need 60 fantasy points to 5x, but he is actually capable of doing that on the slate, especially in this matchup. So it does make him interesting. However, he's not my first choice. But Jalen Brunson over here is a better play. He's been playing really well. Again, the only problem is his price is a lot higher here on FanDuel than DraftKings. Norman Powell's price is also way more expensive, but he's still viable because of how he's played, and so he's somebody to take into consideration. Amir Coffey, he's very dependent on if he starts. If he starts, he has some upside, but he's still streaky and not consistent. So he's out of a Hail Mary play if you want to try to fit in Luka. Then we'll look at Spencer Dinwiddie for Dallas. He's kind of in a overpriced boat as well, just like everybody is on FanDuel basically. But he has upside because he's going to get fantasy points, and he's pretty consistent about it. Justice Winslow, as long as he starts, he's actually a pretty good price here on FanDuel. He's probably one of my favorite plays if he ends up starting. Bojan Bogdanovic, if he plays, he'll definitely be somebody I like, especially at the price point on the slate on this particular website. But overall, I do want to wait and see if he ends up playing or if he's going to have a minutes limit. Otherwise, Bay would potentially be interesting. Then we'll look at Julius Randle. Now, Julius Randle for the Knicks his price is actually pretty decent over here, and he's played really well for the most part. He's had a couple off games, but he's got a good matchup here, which he should be able to dominate in. And then Draymond Green, he's streaky, but he actually gets more upside here on FanDuel because he tends to get blocks and steals some. And when you do that, you get more points on FanDuel. Even though his price is around the same as DraftKings, he's got more upside on FanDuel. Then for centers, Nurkic, again, he has been really good with Lillard out, and I expect that to continue. I should also mention Jeremy Grant again over here. His price is a lot higher than I would like it to be, but he still has potential to 5x on this slate. Then we'll look at finally Mitchell Robinson, who has just played pretty well. His price, though, is not ideal on FanDuel again, and he is streaky, but he does have upside based on the situation. So with that said, guys, I don't really like the slate very much. Pricing is really bad on FanDuel. It's a lot better on DraftKings. So if I was going to choose to play on one site, I would choose DraftKings today. I feel like the pricing is just better, and it's a little bit easier to find value and even to pay up for certain guys just because their prices are not overinflated. And so that's kind of what I have today. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below. Otherwise, have a nice day, guys.